Welcome, everybody. The Patriots 2025 schedule is out, and we are here to break it down for you. It's Deuce, it's Perillo, it's Evan. Guys, I want to start at the top. Very good place to start. The opener, home opener, Las Vegas Raiders. Pete Carroll coming back. Y'all know me, a little bit of an Ashton Genty guy. Rookie running back making his debut here. New look Raiders team coming in here to start the season off. Love the home game to get the season going.
Yeah, they're in a similar spot. You know, they had a high draft pick. They picked a player that we talked a lot about, the Patriots potentially picking in Ashton Genty. So it's going to be interesting to see, for me, this whole Geno Smith experiment. It seems like that's the new thing. It's in vogue right now. A lot of these teams, instead of drafting a quarterback that maybe you're overdrafting in the first round, you sign the Bridgie type quarterback, which is what Geno Smith is. So is he going to be the same guy he was in Seattle without DK Metcalf and Jackson Smith and Jigba, who tore up the Patriots, frankly, here last year in Seattle, with Seattle? We'll see. But it's an interesting opening matchup, I think, for the Patriots, because it's not a great team, but it's enough of a test that we'll get
similar.
a nice look.
Yeah,
It's a
lot of
similar
teams
team.
like this.
Yeah, and I like the I mean, there's always excitement with the opener, pretty much regardless, but you don't have to come in and say, geez, if everything goes right, we might be able to get off to a good start and be 1-0. I think this is a team that at home the Patriots probably feel right now that they can match up with and they can play their style of ball and come away with a win. I think Evan's right. It's going to be interesting to see how that Seattle influence with Pete Carroll and Geno Smith impact the Raiders. They come from, frankly, a pretty good winning culture, winning program with the Seahawks. The Raiders haven't had that in recent years. Now you got Tom Brady bringing those guys in. That's a lot of winning tradition. Does it carry over?
Yeah, Tom Brady, Pete Carroll, a lot of former Patriots involved. Jacoby Myers will probably be back as well. That kicks off the month of September, though, guys. Then a trip down to Miami, always a tough place for the Patriots. You see the Steelers. Might it be Aaron Rodgers coming here to Gillette Stadium? Finally, the Carolina Panthers, another one of these teams that, young quarterback, young team, trying to find their way a little bit. And then their first primetime game of the season on Sunday Night Football at Buffalo. Maybe a chance for Stephon Diggs to get back out there against his old team. I've said it a lot, though. To me, the road to the playoffs goes through the division. Buffalo has owned the division. You played better there in recent years. It's a chance for the Patriots maybe to make an early statement.
It'll be interesting to see what their record is going into that Buffalo game, because there could be some real juice for that Buffalo game with the way the schedule sets up at the beginning of the year, and we're not in a position to be overlooking any opponent until the Patriots start stringing together some wins. But if they're 3-1 going into Buffalo, dare I say 4-0 going into Buffalo, which I don't think is totally out of the realm of possibility based off of the way that the first month sets up, 3 home games, some winnable games in there in September. That'll be fun. That'll be a game that might actually have some stakes and have a little bit of juice that we haven't necessarily had for a Patriots game.
Yeah, but
I agree about Evan with that. That 3 out of 4 at home does give you an opportunity. Now, I think that 3 out of 4 of those games are probably toss-ups. Those 3 home games to me are, like Evan said, I'm not in a place where I'm just penciling in wins.
Right.
But I think that they will have an opportunity to beat Carolina and Vegas and Pittsburgh. Absolutely. At Miami, tall order. They haven't really had a lot of success down there. No success at all against Tua. You would think in week 2 anyway. Tua's probably still going to be healthy. But yeah, you have an opportunity to get off to a good start and create sort of a. I don't know if it's a big game, but it might be a big game, and in your first prime time appearance.
It'd be great if they could get a win against Tua. I know it's also down in Miami, which is another hurdle, but it is honestly frustrating that Tua can, in the Dolphins just in general, can be pretty average against everybody else, and then they play the Patriots, and it's like they're the 07 Pats.
It's like they're playing Madden.
Yeah, they literally can't get him off the field. So if you go down to Miami, even if you just have a really good game and kind of compete against the Dolphins and start the year off on a good note in that first month, and that Buffalo game has definite juice.
Yeah, that Buffalo game kicks off a 3-game road trip, which includes going into the Saints, at the Titans, Mike Vrabel going against his old team, returning home for the Cleveland Browns, Atlanta Falcons. Again, all 5 of these teams, guys, are young teams, haven't really made the playoffs recently. Some of them have major quarterback questions. Team like Atlanta, a lot of positive buzz for that team right now. Michael Penix, how's he going to produce? But they have a lot of talent offensively. They've got some talent on the defensive side of the ball. Paul, it just goes to an overall theme to me of Patriots are similar to a lot of these teams that they're going to play, and this is a proving ground this year. Who are the best teams of these lower echelon tier teams that missed the playoffs last year, and this is where you prove, are you better than those teams?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think I look at Atlanta a little bit as a more difficult game than it seems like most other people do. I think there's a lot of similarities, and I think Atlanta has more talent. They're going to have second-year quarterbacks. Obviously, Drake played more than Penix did, but I think otherwise Penix has more to work with than Drake May does. I think that'll be a tall order. Here's one other thing. That 3-game stretch there that starts with that primetime game in Buffalo. It's a 3-game road trip. So we talked about the buzz that could come up if they get off to a good start. And, I'm just saying they're in the playoff hunt here. This is going to be a team that's going to the long haul. I would hope that if it goes poorly in that primetime game, it doesn't mushroom. Because you have 2 road games against New Orleans and Tennessee that I think you should have every opportunity to win, provided that you're not feeling sorry for yourself if you should happen to go to Buffalo and maybe lose by a couple of touchdowns. So just something to keep an eye on, the way that sometimes it's not necessarily about who you play, but when you play them. That could be one of those things that we're talking about that week.
Yeah, this stretch of the season to me is going to kind of define the season a little bit, because if they're going to get frisky and they're going to really be in the hunt like some people think they're going to be, New Orleans, Tennessee, Cleveland, that has to be 3-0. Like, you have to win all 3 of those games because you have to be able to pad some wins there, because there are going to be some tougher games later on in the season that aren't going to be as easy. So as much as I said earlier, I'm not taking anything for granted in terms of penciling wins for the Patriots. New Orleans, just looking at the schedule, New Orleans has 0 primetime games this year. That usually tells you the league thinks that they're not going to be very good.
Tennessee too, right?
Tennessee has a rookie quarterback, and let's face it, there were some questions of whether or not Cam Ward really was a number 1 overall pick quarterback. They've got a long way to go there as well. I agree with Paul a little bit on Cleveland. I think they're kind of in the same boat as you, where they could be a frisky wild card type contender, but still, I think that's the season right there. If you're going to really get to 8, 9, 10 wins and be pushing for a playoff spot, you have to go 3-0 in that stretch.
Yeah, and that's where it starts to get tougher. You go to Tampa Bay, down Florida. I mean, you are in November, so maybe not heat as much of a factor, but a good team. Talent, continue to stock their wide receiver position. Short turnaround to the Jets on Thursday Night Football. As much as maybe people might want to overlook the Jets, I just think generally that's always a tough game. It's a short week. It's a division opponent that knows you well. Tough defense. Not going to be an easy game there.
By the way, the last time you saw Justin Fields, he maybe had his best day as a pro.
Right here in the stadium as well.
Correct.
At Cincinnati, maybe a revenge game for them. They're coming down to the playoff stretch. They'll be looking for a win. And then finally, you're on Monday Night Football against the Giants. We'll see if that one sticks. Hopefully it will. Both teams are good enough to stay in that spot. But that 4-game stretch there right before the bye week, have you mentioned, a little bit easy. You got to win those games because things start to get tougher as you get into that late bye week. Again, week 14 for the second year in a row, which is it's never ideal. It's never ideal to wait that long. But getting to that point, you're going to know a lot about this team.
Yeah, Tampa Bay, playoff team last year, they're a good team. That's a good football team. Baker Mayfield's really found himself in Tampa Bay, and that's going to be a tough one for the Pats. And I think Cincinnati bounces back this year and has a good season. I think they're going to be a team that we're talking about as an AFC contender and someone that could be playing in the championship game again like they were a couple of years ago. So those 2 games are nice litmus test games, but also games that I think if you're looking at it objectively are probably in the loss column, just looking, projecting forward. So it'd be interesting to see how they stack up in that game. The late bye, the league has talked a little bit about giving the Patriots the late bye the second time in a row. They used that Week 11 mini bye with the Jets on Thursday night as part of the reasoning of, well, they have the mini bye, so it's not like it's the full 13-week stretch without any time off for the Pats. So that Thursday night going into the mini bye week will also be big from just a focus standpoint and things like that, because that point you've been playing football, a lot of football for a while without any breaks, and you might be looking ahead to that long weekend thinking that's going to be awfully nice, but you got to take care of business against a really beatable Jets team.
That back half, if the teams are what we think they are, and there's obviously a lot of question with how everybody unfolds in the NFL because teams go from last to first all the time and vice versa. Cincinnati, Buffalo, Baltimore, Miami, these are teams that they've had a hard time. Starts with the Tampa Bay game that Evan talked about. So this, again, further accentuates the importance of doing what Mike Vrabel wants to do, wants to be able to be a team that can take advantage of bad football. I think they're going to see some bad football teams at the top half of that schedule. You got to make hay if you want to be in contention around that bye.
Yeah.
You got to beat the New Orleans, the Tennessees, the Clevelands. You got to win those games.
Yeah, and I throw the Giants in there too. And if
Giants,
they were to,
that's got to be a must-win.
To face the Giants on Monday night, right before your bye week in December, it could be an opportunity for a big win there. Go into the bye week with some momentum, because as they get into these final 4 game guys, it's a tough outing. It's Buffalo Bills here at home, at the Ravens, at the Jets, and then finally a TBD game against the Dolphins, which, love getting Miami up here in the winter, but you're hoping that game could be very meaningful. It could have a chance to have real playoff implications. But overall, the number of AFC games they have down the stretch, if the Patriots, like you said, can take advantage of some of those teams in the middle, stay within the playoff race, they'll set themselves up for a really big opportunity at the end. But, Paul, these are 4 good teams. And I'm going to throw the Jets in there as a good team, too, because they're on the road, and this is, late December. Every one of these games is going to count. It's a tough road.
I think you're right to do that, especially at the Jets. Even when the Jets were really struggling all the time, before they got like sort of this Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner, the influx of talent, Garrett Wilson, they always gave the Patriots fits. Now the Patriots almost always won. I think they won like 14 in a row or something silly like that. But the games seemed to be tougher than you thought they were going to be. Now it's not a talent issue for the Jets. We don't know what Justin Fields is going to be like as the Jets quarterback, but around him there's more in place than say 5 years ago. These are going to be difficult games for them. The importance, again, of taking care of business in that first, say, 7, 8, 9 weeks and putting yourself in position to be in playoff contention is imperative. You do what you've done the last 2 or 3 years and have that 1-3, 2-7 start. You're not going to turn it around on that schedule at the end.
Yeah, those 2 games, Buffalo, Baltimore, back-to-back is tough. And I know it's coming off the bye, but those are 2 teams that are expecting to win the Super Bowl this year, not just be contenders, but win the whole thing, that you're going to play in back-to-back weeks. If we get to that point of the season and the Patriots are in playoff contention at that point, if they win either one of those games, I mean that's really going to tell us a lot about where this whole thing is headed with Mike Vrabel and the entire regime and Drake May. Drake May goes and battles Lamar Jackson and wins a game against the MVP. Like that says a lot about both those games. So I'm looking forward to seeing sort of what they're made of in those games. 'Cause I think a lot of these games early on in the season, even if they win them, we're still going to be like, well, it was the Saints or it was the Titans or whatever the case may be.
Certainly my shows will be doing that.
The Giants game, like that probably could be Jackson Dart at that point. So you're beating a rookie quarterback, right, on Monday Night Football. Let's see what they're made of in that final stretch, especially against Buffalo and Baltimore.
All right, well, there you have it. That's a 2025 Patriots schedule. What do you think? Let us know in the comments below. We'll see you next time.